Hello and welcome to this new episode of Daughters of Narcissistic Mothers podcast. Today we're going to answer to emails that I've received from you guys that were about how to keep no contact during the holiday season. But before we get to that, I want to remind you of the special offer that is on until November 27th. Which is the chance of getting €150 off of the total investment for the 10 weeks one-on-one program, Inner Transformation and Healing Mother Wounds. When you sign up for it now, you get that discount, and you also get your space secured for the next wave, which is starting in January 2024. Spaces are limited to 4. And it works on first comes, first serves basis. So if you're interested in that, you can email me and I will send you all the details. Or if you have any questions on it as well, you can email me. The offer ends November 27th. So, back on the topic, I have received a few requests to speak a little more about being no contact during the holiday season. I want to take a moment to thank those who reached out. I deeply honor you, first of all, for reaching out, for being vulnerable and real, and also because with your shares and questions, which are never silly, by the way, you also give a voice to those who don't yet feel ready to reach out, which is fine too. I've been unable to reach out and even ask the simplest question for a big part of my life. It was never a safe thing to do for me in my home environment. If I asked a question, I'd be told I was stupid or laughed at or told now it's not the moment and so on. And even in school, I would rather swallow my own tongue than ask a question. But when someone else did, I was grateful usually because that person spoke for me as well. So I wanted to share that to underline the importance of even one of you, amazing women, sharing your questions and experiences when you email me. It matters more than it matters to a lot of people that are not speaking. And although they're not there telling you that, that counts for them as well. So thank you for that. So no contact during the holiday season, and as for that matter, no contact during any special event, any particular time where your mother can have a good excuse to actually make contact again. Oh, I also received a good few emails from some of you who are feeling into the possibility of going no contact and are facing internal and external challenges on this topic. So this episode is going to have some good information for you as well. As always, take what you feel is for you and leave the rest. I also want to be clear about one thing. When I speak about no contact, in this episode, but also in the other episodes I've done so far on this topic, I'm referring to active no contact, as in when it's your choice not to communicate or interact in any way with your mother for a prolonged period of time or for the rest of her life altogether. I know that sometimes the no contact situation can be imposed upon us by our mothers, and it's not really a choice we make, but a consequence of her complete neglect or silence treatment. This is a different topic altogether with different challenges and different ways to go about it. So let me know if you would like me to speak to this in another episode. Again, you can reach out via email and we can, I will answer your questions. We can make an episode on this. So getting back to our topic of today, keeping no contact during the holidays and all special events. What's in this episode can also work when we're talking about birthdays and other special events that may occur in your life. As I said, that your mother could see as an excuse to try and contact you, because that's ultimately what these events give our mothers, like an excuse to reach out, even though it's obvious that we're not really wanting to talk to them. In my observation, there are two main aspects to this. And I want to say that if you're in contact with your mother and you plan to stay that way, that's also 100% fine. You can still benefit from listening to this, as these two aspects apply to us all, really. Um, the first aspect is what you do outside of yourself to maintain the practice of no contact, which is important, of course. This includes all the practicalities, the everyday choices, decisions, and actions. The second aspect regards what you are feeling on the inside and what you do with that. Now, researching on this topic, and I don't mean just the no contact topic, but also on the whole subject of maternal narcissism, I found nearly nothing on this second, more internal aspect, as if it could be entirely bypassed. So there's a heap of practical tips and heap of practical things you can do, but it's completely disregarding what you're actually feeling on the inside, and that sometimes prevents us from implementing the practical tips in the first place. All I found was either a complete invitation to suppress it all and just, bulldoze through the practicalities, disregarding how you're feeling. This was usually expressed between the lines, or a strong projection of blame and victimhood. So both these ways are not very helpful, to say the least. I want to give you an example. Let's say you nail the practicalities and you have been successfully in no contact for the last 2 years, including the holidays. Like, amazing. You've done it. But you spent all that time with a continuous sense of anxiety eating at you, or a crushing guilt, or a feeling of isolation that you can't deal with anymore. Or maybe you manage very well, but you started drinking a lot at night or watching stuff online as a mean to keep your mind busy and those feelings at bay. So I say this with no judgment if that is your situation. There's no judgment whatsoever. I've been there. My escape has been keeping busy all the time. I was like a master at keeping busy. And also I was watching so much nonsense on TV till late at night. So I know the feeling very well. And it makes sense to try and manage the emotional storm whichever way we can when no one is speaking to it, when there's no safe place to voice it and feel it, when no one has taught us how to transform it. I get that. That's why I want to speak to it. And I want you to know that I know you have been doing your very best. Every day you do your very best. And I deeply honor you for that. So throughout this, be kind and loving to yourself and the part of you that finds solutions to cope with life. We need to be kind with that part as well. She does her best with the tools that she has in the moment. Okay? So I'm going to speak to this second aspect because it can't be bypassed. We're not here to survive, but we're here to thrive and feel joy again. And to be able to do that, we need to go through also the emotional storm that is there underneath the surface. But first, let's have a look at the practicalities. So what you do outside of yourself to keep the no contact successfully over the holidays and over all special events. So I won't go through how a narcissistic mother weaponizes the holiday season or the list of tips I've already offered in the previous episode. The episode was how to survive the holiday season with a narcissistic mother/family. So if you haven't listened to it yet, you can do that. It offers a lot to work with. So if you only came across this episode on no contact, you can or on the holidays, you can still listen to the other episode because it gives a lot that you can work with. But specifically to no contact, so to understand how to behave when we're no contact, especially during a time like the winter holidays, a time that is full of excuses for our mother to reach out and also is full of reasons supposedly why we should reach out. We need to understand what it means to be no contact. And no contact has nothing to do with your mother, and it has all to do with you. This is really key to understand. And this comes from just over 2 years of being in contact with my mother. So like very deep personal experience on this. And also a lot of research on the topic. So, no contact has nothing to do with your mother and all to do with you. Of course, you had to come to this decision because of your mother and her behavior and so on. But if it's only a reaction to her, you are going to struggle to keep it up. As she is a master manipulator and she has trained your system to respond to triggers your entire life. Also, you will have to keep the story of blame and victimhood active in your life to have a reason to keep no contact. Okay, and this will keep you suffering. It will keep the suffering going if you have to constantly leave this story of blame and victimhood, keep those story trends alive, those patterns active in your system. This is going to keep you suffering. Okay, so this is about you, it's not about your mother. We need to change the narrative. Rather than being no contact being a reaction to your mother, being no contact is a need you have. It's not because of her, it is for yourself. It is to protect your heart, to open up to healing, to feel safe, to keep your family safe if you have one, to direct your energy where it's supposed to go rather than towards a toxic person. This is key. Going no contact is where it's actually about where you direct your energy. If you're constantly directing your energy towards a toxic person, that takes it away from you, takes it away from your life, takes it away from your family if you have one, takes it away from your business if you want to have one, takes it away from your health, takes it away from your overall happiness. So rather than worrying so much about the no contact and how and this and that, if start directing that energy back towards yourself, reclaim that energy for yourself. The no contact becomes like nearly like a side effect of that, like a byproduct. Because if you start directing your energy to yourself, that those other patterns of sending it constantly towards your mother are gonna stop. It is not about how to stay in contact with your mother. It is more about how to live your life from this perspective that I just mentioned, when each action you take is devoted to your well-being and by extension to the well-being of those close to you. Having my mother in my life was hurting me and my family. I couldn't change that fact. I tried, but couldn't, because it is not in my power, nor it is in yours, to control the behavior of another. So I stopped having her in my life. It just becomes like a byproduct. It's not something I need to keep up or keep practicing. It just happens because of the directing of the energy. Okay, so that's important to understand. Also, it is not about the boundaries you set with her. You can tell her not to call a million times. She still will try and call. But it is about the boundaries you set with yourself. And this is really key. This for me changed a lot. And I've used that with so many clients. We've used it in our own life. It's really, really important to understand. So it's not about the boundaries you set with her. You can't control how she behaves. You never were able to control how she behaved in the first place. So how are things going to change now? You know, she's never respected your boundaries before. Why would she start now? So it's about the boundaries you set with yourself. So if she keeps on calling you and you can't control her behavior, you can control your behavior. If the phone rings, I will not answer. That's your behavior, you know? Or better still, you can block her number altogether. So you have set a boundary in your own environment, in the space that you can control. You set the rules. When you set boundaries that you're in control of, you empower yourself to be in control of your life. So if the holidays offer your mother a good excuse to try and make contact, your boundaries for yourself are still there. and can be adapted to meet the new needs. This is going to be very specific to you, so I can only offer a few examples. Again, please reach out with questions on your specific situations. Um, these are only just a few examples to get a little bit of an idea. So it's okay not to answer the door if it's your mother that shows up after you told her not to. So you can't control her showing up to your door, but you can control what you do when she does that. And it's okay not to answer. It's okay to block her from your social media platforms or to block her phone number. It's okay not to invite her to events you're organizing. And if this feels too challenging right now for you, then it's okay not to organize events you would feel obliged to invite her to. The list could go on, and as I said, it's going to be very specific for each person. The bottom line is you can't control what your mother does, but you can control what you do. And that is your focus. So again, you're directing your energy towards your life with devotion towards your heart, and you are getting in control of what you do with that energy and how you set boundaries around you. Point number 3. So those were the first two main points. Point number 3, there is a big need to let go of your expectations, that to have your celebrations in the traditional way it has always been in your life with your family of origin. Sometimes that is a big deal. Again, if it's not for you, that's okay. Just this, take what is for you, leave the rest. But if the traditional way of spending the holidays or spending special events, it's really important to you, and that has been a thing, like you've that has always happened in your life since you were a child. You spent the holidays in such and such way with your family and such. This could be like a cause of grief and sadness when that is no longer possible, or we might try to keep it up despite everything else. Clearly, when we go no contact, this becomes quite a challenging thing, because how do you do that while being no contact? So I'm going to bring a personal example to clarify this. In my family tradition, we celebrate Christmas. So my family of origin gathers for Christmas Eve dinner. This has been the case since I was very small, and it still is. They still do that. But I don't go. That's it. I don't go anymore. Um, I never made a big statement about it, but I firmly say no if I'm asked by my family members to join the Christmas Eve dinner, where everyone is there. I don't do that anymore. I know my mother is there, so I don't ring anymore either, because what I've done for some time, so I stopped going, but just to keep, like, because you want to keep things going good and you want to keep pleasing other people, I rang. So I instead of going, I was ringing. Now I wasn't no contact yet at that time, but I was ringing the family when they were all together, ending with this like pathetically sad group call, the phone being handed from one to the next, ending up talking with people that I didn't even know they were there. It was like nonsensical, really, but I kept doing it. I did it for a couple of years. I don't do that anymore either. So I send a message to those I choose to, the family member that I feel a connection with, and I ring when I know it's safe to do so. So when my mother is not around, and I know that for a fact. So again, I can't control what they do. I can't control what my mother does, but I can control what I do. And I had to let go of that expectation of keeping of being able to keep going on the Christmas Eve dinner. That's just not happening. And I can't force them to change their tradition, because that's their life, that's their story, and that's their thing. But what I can do is change the way I go about it. So my family and I, my husband, my two daughters, and I created our own new way of celebrating, and that's that. That's what we do. So again, that's just a practical way. um, it's really important to let go of the expectations of how things should be celebrated. um, in the other episode, I do talk about spiritual abuse and how the mother can use that against you. If you're not celebrating a certain way, then you're a bad practitioner of whatever belief and spiritual path you're on. So that is something that can be used against you. But remember that how you practice spiritually is down to you, and you can find ways to do that that do not include your mother in it if you wish to stay no contact. So if she uses that as a way to control you, that's an abusive behavior that has nothing to do with your spirituality at all. Um, Another question I've got, which is point number 4. Again, this may apply or may not to you, but I know it does apply to a good few people that reached out. What about the grandkids? I know some of you who have reached out have children, creating the question, is it right to keep grandchildren away from their grandmother? And this is a question that we already have in general about the whole no contact thing. Is it all right? I go no contact. Is it all right for my kids not to have any contact with their grandmother? But especially when we get to the holiday season, which is like, again, traditionally, for many traditions, is like so important for children. Children are at the center of it. Family is at the center of it. So this can create a lot of guilt and a lot of doubts on the whole thing, and also a big excuse for our mothers to reach out, because yeah, okay, whatever about you, but I want to reach out to my grandchildren and I have the right to do that. So I can't answer that for you, as in I can't tell you what to do about this. It is a very personal matter, and again, when it's discussed in one-on-one, the very specific personal situation that we can work on, but to give a generalized answer that fits everyone, that's impossible. So the invitation is to let go of the concepts of right and wrong by what others might think of it, and focus more on what you have observed works for you in your life and what doesn't. Meaning, if to get the kids to see their grandmother, you are under severe stress for days on end, that's not helpful. And it's not helpful for you, and it's not helpful for your kids either. So ask yourself, when you're coming to this like question within you about your children seeing their grandmother, is it worth it? Okay, what you have to do in order for this to happen, what you have to put yourself through in order for this to happen, is it really worth it? And observe your children, tune in with them, see how much they actually really need to see their grandmother or not, because that's important as well. Like, sometimes we think it's a should, and the grandkids should be in contact with their grandmother, but in my observation, sometimes that's not the case. Sometimes your children are really fine without that, and they're letting you know it's just we go with social programming and family traditions and what should be right and what is not right, and we get caught in that, and we're not actually really observing the situation, really. In my personal case, my daughters have no contact with their grandmother in the last 2 years. The toxicity was extending to them too. So that's how we went about it. What can often happen is that the kids become a mean for your mother to get to you. No matter what she says, chances are she doesn't truly care about the actual grandchildren. She just wants a hook to get to you and to get you back into the loop. Okay? So that's something important to consider and to keep an eye on, because this is really toxic for the grandchildren when they're caught in the middle of this triangulation kind of thing, and they become like, especially when they're very small, they become like the flying monkeys. I've been in that position. I've actually been the one that has been sent by my grandmother to my mother to try and work their relationship. I was the one that was sent to bring messages and to speak to my mother, because my grandmother is very narcissistic towards my mother. No wonders. My mother is the way she is. So I was the one caught in the middle. As a granddaughter, I was being used to reach my mother, which was really, well, it was obviously horrible for my mother. Well, but that was her choice what to do with it, and she did nothing. She attacked me instead of going talking to her mother. So can you see, I was caught in the middle, and that can be extremely toxic. I suffered for that. It took me a long time to unravel all of that, and that weird relationship of three people involved in the same thing, one of which was a small child. So it's important to understand that that is a possibility and that can happen. And you really want to protect your child from that. Definitely. So try, sometimes it's possible, but sometimes trying and staying in contact with, while the kids, especially if they're very small and they still need you a lot, are still involved with your mother, is quite challenging. Personally, I chose not to do it. So what I can say is, if they're still very small, they won't even know it, so you're okay. Just go with whatever feels good for you right now. If they're old enough, you can talk to them and you can explain. And that is what I did with mine. We had a lot of conversations on this, and they got to ask a lot of questions, and they got their answers. And they're good with that. If they are old enough to have a relationship with your mother without you needing to get involved, well, then that's their choice. And you can't really do much about that. At beyond a certain age, they get to make their own choices. So again, you can't control what others do, but you can control what you do. So your boundaries still stand. Even if your adult children go and see your mother during the holidays, you can still keep your boundaries. That's up to them what they want to do. You don't need to get involved with that. You don't need to get involved in conversation. You don't need to get involved in anything. And if they start trying to parent you in return, which sometimes happens, again, your boundaries are there. I don't need to discuss this relationship with my mother with you. How were your holidays? And that's that. Okay? So the next point is, just as you need to let go of expectations, you also need to let go of worrying about appearing like a good person in the eyes of others. This is really important. When we go into contact, the judgment of others can hit us quite heavily. Not everyone understands that choice, and especially during the holiday season, this can be a really big factor, because you're not seeing your mother at Christmas or whatever holidays, whatever tradition you're from. I speak for myself. When I said that I don't go visit my family or my mother for Christmas, people are looking at me really weird, like, oh, that's really not on. She's your mother. So you can get that. You can be at the receiving end of that, making you feel like you're a bad person. So this whole thing, this whole concept of being a good person and a bad person, personally, the invitation is to let go of it altogether, and not because I'm telling you to be a bad person, but because often when morality gets involved and the concern about what others would think gets involved, there are a lot of shoulds and a lot of rules that have actually nothing to do with being a person of heart, but a lot to do with obligations and programming from society. That is not very helpful. Setting boundaries, spending the holidays in your terms, prioritizing your well-being and the one of your family, doing what's necessary to keep your heart safe, does not make you a bad person. It is an act of self-love and devotion to your heart, and that is a good thing. And I want you to know that. That's really important. Now, the last aspect, the last point of this first aspect that is a bit more practical, it's another question I got from you, and it's, what if she sends gifts? What if she sends presents? Again, this is personal. It is your choice whether to accept a possible gift from your mother or not. Be aware that this can be used as an excuse to get in contact, meaning she could call or send flying monkeys, other family members maybe, to tell you she needs to speak to you regarding your present, or that the only way she can give it to you is in person. All attempts to make contact, again, remember your boundaries to yourself and go by them. Whatever, if the only way she feels she can give you a gift is by be in person, by meeting you in person, you have your boundaries, you're not going to meet your mother in person, then the answer is no. Thank you for your gift, but no. I'm not going to meet you on those terms. That's it. If the only way is to ring you and have a conversation with you about your present because she wants to buy you something that needs a size or that needs all of these details. So actually, can you see how that becomes a way to get details about you and then comment on those? Oh, I didn't know you were that size. Are you eating enough? Or the opposite, whatever comment, like you don't want any of that. You don't want any of that. So um, keep to your boundaries. If you haven't been on the phone with your mother for for a long time because you've been no contact, keep it up during the holidays. If she wants to send you a present and she truly wants to send you a present, she will find a way to do that without breaking your boundaries. Also, she could send you a gift that could hurt you. For example, accompanied by a card full of victimhood and other guilting strategies. And if you know that that is probably the case, it is okay not to even open it. I have burned letters from my family and postcards and cards from my family and my mother in particular way before even opening them. Because I've learned opening one of those letters caused me to be really, really, really in a bad place for weeks afterwards, with quite the consequences, as you can well imagine, within my family, with my husband and my daughters. If I was in a really bad place, that was obviously reflecting on everyone around me. And it was just because of a big long letter about how bad I was and guilting me into making contact with them. Even when I was in contact, mind you, like I was ringing, I was in contact, and still I was getting all of this stuff. So no, I don't actually open them anymore, and my life is all the better for it. So it's okay not to open it. It's okay. You're allowed not to open it. You can't control her sending it, but you can control what you do with it. Can you see that boundary point comes on all the time? It's like it's one of the foundations of keeping no contact. It's one of the foundations of boundaries, even if you are in contact. That's why I'm saying even if you are in contact, this episode can be very useful anyways. That point is essential. You're not trying to control her, you are gaining control of your own life. So you are going about things that you can control and setting strong boundaries in your own world there. With all that said, if it is a gift that feels okay to you, then it's your choice whether to send a thank you in return. It's okay not to, but it's your choice if you want to, and you can do that while maintaining your boundaries, as in with no further engaging. I actually know of one person that has been so no contact with her mother for such a long time that the mother doesn't even know where she lives, and yet she did send some card or something to her mother, but without revealing her address, without saying where she was. So this was just like one contact that was 100% in her control. So she felt that was what she needed to do, but there was no engaging further. So she still was in control of the rules of the game, so to speak. So that's important. So I believe I spoke enough to this aspect, the more practical one. The most important thing to take out of this is that you can't control what your mother does or does not around these coming holidays, but you can control what you do. Set boundaries for yourself. Be the one who sets the rules. rules that you're in control of. And if you have any questions or you need more support with this, please reach out via email. Again, the email is always in the description of the episode, so you can reach out. Now, I want to address the second aspect, the more internal one, the one that has got all to do with your heart. There's an ocean of feelings that can emerge by going no contact, and they can get very triggered during the holiday season, especially when you see other families getting together and looking happy from the outside. You know, it's only natural, and it happens that we start comparing our situation to what we see others are actually living, what seems to be the experience of others from the outside. um, Guilt, sadness, loneliness, isolation, feeling of isolation, anger for what you might feel is missing in your life, blame, longing for the mother you didn't have, for the idea of a mother, missing the good times if there were any, anxiety and fear that you might not be doing the right thing, or that she might show up and punish you or ruin everything, and more. So all of this and more can be part of your experience. And I want you to know, what I want you to know is that given the circumstances, this is all very natural. And if you feel any of that, there's nothing wrong with you. That's really important. Um, I've been through a lot of those feelings, a lot of those emotions. Actually, when I'm thinking about the list I've just said, all of them. And they still come up. They still come up. Okay, going no contact and maintaining it is not about not having those feelings or suppressing them. We're not made of stone. Um, it's about not acting out of those feelings, not to let them take full control. So out of guilt, we might reach out again. We feel lonely, we might reach out again and break the no contact and get caught in the loop again. We might long for the mother we didn't have, and after, especially after you've been no contact for a while, you start idealizing your mother and thinking she's actually the mother that you wish for. You start imagining things. I've been there, and I need to catch myself. No, my mother is not like that. Actually, my mother is the one that does the opposite of that, and that's it. So we might go with the longing and try and contact, and then we get hurt again. Um, and also the fear and the anxiety, like the fear of her coming in and punish and getting angry, that can stop us from enjoying the whole experience even when we still are no contact. So it's really important to acknowledge these feelings. Remember that these feelings are not you. It's but a part of you that feels that way. Even when it seems to be swallowing you, it is not. It's just a part. And these feelings need to be acknowledged. We're not going to act out of those feelings, but we're going to acknowledge that they're there. And it is essential to create a container, both within yourself and around you, so that you feel safe and supported while navigating those feelings, rather than being swallowed by them, and also rather than trying to do this all on your own. So to create a container on the outside, reach out and seek support. Communicate to people you trust and to people who also have the tools to hold space for you in a safe way. That's important. You can't just go tell about everyone. Again, some people will judge you for being no contact and for being no contact during the holidays and stuff. So it's important that you choose who you communicate with, but that you do have some people that you speak about this with and that can truly hold a container for you. This can be true friends, maybe your partner. My partner has been key for me in all of this. So, but again, not always this is applicable. So maybe a specific group, a women's circle you feel comfortable in, anywhere where you can speak truly about what you are feeling and that you're safe doing so. Another part of creating a container is to set your sacred space for you to practice and train your system, because there's a lot of training involved in this. Um, we've been trained since we were children to respond to all these triggers, to be full of guilt, to be full of a sense of isolation, to be full of shame. We've been trained to be anxious all the time, to be hyper vigilant. We have been trained, so we need to retrain the system, to create new pathways. And having a sacred space in your home, in your environment, it's actually really helpful. Now we can do without. The sacred space is ultimately your body, you are your sacred space. But with that said, to have a reminder in your own home, in your own space, a space that where you feel like it's like a nest, a space where you feel comfortable and safe and protected and nourished, it's important. It's very helpful. It can truly help. I've called it sacred space because not because it has any religious connotations, but because it is a space that is devoted to you and you deserve that. So to help you create in this, I have put together a quick guide that is called A Quick Guide to Create Your Sacred Space. And it's for you, it's free, and you can download it. It's a small little ebook that you can download, and the link is in the description of the episode. So if you haven't already, go ahead and do that, because that can be like a really nice practice to start doing now, creating that little space for it. It doesn't have to be massive. It can be an entire room if you have a big house and that's what you want to do. In my case, it's just a little corner in my bedroom, but that's okay. Whichever, again, that's all written in the guide. Whichever the size, whichever the way you want to do it, it's a truly helpful thing. And in the guide, I go through all of that. So go ahead and download that. It's at the bottom of the episode. And yes, that was about the outer container. Now, the inner container is also of great importance. And it's a container that you create for those parts of you that feel those intense emotions within yourself. So that is the mother energy that is within you. This is what your mother, my mother haven't done when we were small. They would have been the container. They would have been the ones that would have shown us the way to hold space. A child cries and the mother gives a hug and is present and accepts whatever emotion is going through the child, but holds space, nourishes and loves. We didn't get that. But that mother energy is within us no matter what. Like, even if we didn't get that, we can access that. It is the bigger you that can recognize what you're feeling is not you. I can hold and that part can hold space for the part of you that feels that way in a loving, safe way. Now, this is not something that is necessarily there. I personally didn't know how to access that, because not having been shown by my mother at all or by anyone else in my life growing up, I had no idea how to access that part. So I had to learn. This is a skill that can be learned and trained. So when I first was introduced to this is important to mention. I had absolutely no idea how to do that, as I said. But so how was I doing that? Because we still try to soothe in some way. So I was completely dependent on others to save me or soothe me or distract me. Which, as you can well imagine, was not working very well. That actually created a lot of codependent relating and a very, very messy relationships, both in the romantic sense and with friendships. So it was a mess. So that's why I'm saying you can train it, and I have since trained and learned, and more I can hold space for that, for what is happening within myself, for that part, for those parts that feel those emotions. Without judgment. It's not that those emotions should not be there and they're bad and they need fixing. They come up, and it's fine that they do. So we just hold space. This is one of the foundations we work on in the one-on-one program in the 10 weeks. It is a fundamental life skill, and that is whether you are no contact or not. during the holiday seasons or not. There are The more you practice that, the easier it is to access, making the emotions less overwhelming and a lot easier to transform into fuel for creating the wonderful life you deserve. Um, so that's pretty much it on this topic, the keeping no contact during the holidays. I hope this was helpful. Again, feel free to reach out with your questions, share your experience, and remember that there is the offer discount plus a space guaranteed in a one-on-one 10 weeks program for the wave opening in January. Again, I always only open up to 4 spaces for these waves, because that's what I allow in my schedule, and it fits with the lifestyle, it fits with the homeschooling of my girls, it fits with all of that. So that's the spaces I have available, and they go quite fast. So this offer is so that when the wave in January opens, you already have your space for that. You can start the new year already knowing that you have that coming up. Um, yeah, so if you're interested, send me an email. The 27th of November is the deadline for that. And with that, I'm gonna send you lots of love and bye for now.